The girls' varsity basketball team played a hard-fought game against Alvern, but unfortunately lost, ending their season with a 13-5 record. So congratulations to the girls. Before break, seniors took home the win at Winter Carnival with a 2000s lip sync battle, with juniors following close behind, placing first for hallway decorating. Nice. Overall, it was a great couple of weeks, and we are glad to be back with 3.5 months of school left.
That's it?
That's it.
But who's counting?
Not me.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Lil. Go ahead, Ms. Bean.
Jen Boschman, our librarian, has had students sign up for the Fisher Cats Reading Challenge. Nice. If students read 5 books, they'll earn 2 free tickets to the a Fisher Cats game. And they need to do all of this by April 1st. Additionally, the librarian is in the process of switching our display cabinet to promote the Flume Award. If you're not familiar with that, it promotes teen reading by inviting teens to help select great literature. And then on April 10th, there'll be a vote throughout New Hampshire, 9th through 12th graders, to nominate their favorite books. And we'll have top books across the state that kids have nominated. The guidance department and librarians continue to hold future-focused Friday events, during which representatives from the area businesses come to speak with students like a job fair and discuss career opportunities and just let them know about different jobs. But for the first time in March, we're going to promote scholarship applications to our graduating seniors by hosting a Free Money Friday. Seniors will have the opportunity to come into the library and complete scholarship applications during the day, with representatives coming from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and Granite Advance, which was formerly the New Hampshire Higher Ed Foundation, along with our school counselors helping them to fill out those applications. With the in-school SAT shortly approaching towards the end of this month, our juniors are in boot camp. They're using newly released SAT study material to prepare for the test. Guidance will be visiting English classes to get them registered for the exam day prior to the actual test day. This test will be our first time taking this new format with 2 levels of difficulty. They'll all take the same first part, and then based on how they do on the first part, the second part of the test will tailor either up or down based on how they performed on the first part, which will be more like, was it the NECAP?
It's more like the NEWA, NWEA, so it's an adaptive assessment.
And then the New Hampshire's still going to do the essay part. And in speaking with the English teachers, they said that this essay that they have to prepare is more like the essays that they'd prepare in their first year of college. That's how they're graded. And that SAT is still one of the predictors of how kids will do in college. And in fact, there's a new wave of schools that are starting to require the SAT again. Dartmouth just recently announced that, with others coming right behind. Shannon O'Brien made it to the regional competition of Poetry Out Loud on February 22nd at New England College, and while she didn't place in the top 3, she nailed her performance and recited her poems beautifully and proudly, representing Goffstown High School. Scott Maya, our science teacher, is the faculty advisor for the Science National Honor Society. He has just opened up for new people to apply into that, and we got more than 20 applicants. The applicants had to fill out an application, they had to get teacher recommendations, and then they'll check grades through the Power School office, and the committee will then figure out who gets inducted into the Science National Honor Society. The existing members of the Science National Honor Society are currently planning their spring meetings and looking to get faculty and community guest speakers with talks focused on broadening science awareness and career interests. And they'll also hold a pinning and tasseling induction ceremony for their newly accepted students. And that's the news I have to share tonight.
Wow, that's a lot of news.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Wendy. Nothing?
I'm all set for tonight. Well, because of vacation.
Oh,
I'm all set
okay.
for tonight.
All right. Thank you. Anyone? Go ahead, Scott. Oh, and then Nicole. Go ahead.
I went to the musical, and I know that I talked at the last meeting, but it was phenomenal. And Lily, you were great. And the talent of this production was crazy. Like, there's so much talent on that stage. It just blew my mind. And just the very difficult production, I thought, especially for a musical, the range of voice you need for a lot of those parts was, I thought, super challenging and A+. It was just like, I've been talking about it since I went. So I'm hooked. I will be going to more of these.
He's been humming the tunes. So there's
no,
more
it's
to
just-
this, Bill. We've had to have a little bit of an intervention with Mr.
No, so
Gross.
it's just, it was so good. So congratulations to
Thank
you and all of those in the cast. It was just phenomenal. So
I will
good.
let them know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Nicole.
I have a couple, and my first one's actually music-related as well. I wanted to commend Miss Moriarty. She's a 6th grade social studies and science teacher at Mountain View. She had the kids learning about ancient Mesopotamia the week before vacation by singing and dancing along to a song about it to the tune of a Soulja Boy song. It was hilarious. Mason came home and was singing the words, showing it to the family. I've heard other parents saying how much their kids liked it. They all liked it so much they did it again the next day. So
Now, can you send that to Mr. Gross? He likes these musical numbers.
I can send him the YouTube video of the song. Unfortunately, Miss Moriarty's not in it, but commendations to all the teachers that are doing great things to engage our students in unique ways. And I also wanted to commend, we have a couple of GHS students in the youth forum that have come up with their own service project where they are raising some money for families in transition, and that money is going to go to 2 different things that help out families that are coming into the shelter. So helping to buy sweatpants and sweatshirts because they often don't have clothing with them, and helping to fund welcome baskets with things like toiletries in them. So these kids came up with this on their own. They're about a quarter of the way to their $5,000 goal, so kudos to them as well as all the other students that are working to help the community.
Thank you, Nicole. Anyone else? Commendations, good news? Go ahead, Jenny.
We went to senior night for the girls' basketball team, and they won their game, and they played wonderfully. It was really a fun game to watch, close back and forth, and it was a great game to watch. We also went to Les Mis, and it was amazing. My husband was blown away too, Scott, so you can call him anytime, because he's still like, and he does community theater with people who, do productions in New York and whatever, and he was just like, wow, those kids are amazing. And I know I was talking to Kim, who said she thought this was a group of kids that, might raised to the level, and even Kim said, like, wow, they just went up to expectations and way past. It was an amazing show, really. Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else? Commendations, good news? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? No, so we'll close that. So now we're going to approve February 5th deliberative session minutes and also February 19th. So let's do the deliberative first. Oh, wait, we don't approve those because we didn't write them.
Yeah, they're not ours.
No.
But if anybody has any suggested changes.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
For one little thing, on page 6, near the bottom, Jared Talbot is written in as Jarod instead of Ed.
Oh, good catch.
Same thing on page 3, under demographic data. Miss Moore would have caught it.
Anybody
Oh, yeah,
see
there it is.
anything else? All right, so we'll make sure that those get corrected. Thank you, guys. So now our minutes from February 19th. Anybody see anything? I'll need a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Nicole. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining?
I'm abstaining because I
One
wasn't
abstention?
present.
Okay, we have one abstention. Get that? All right, parent-student handbook approval.
Mrs. Kohler?
Yeah.
So prior to break, I sent all of the handbooks over to all of the school board members. I also sent over a page that had some global changes that were done at the CNE meeting. So when you looked at those documents, all of the track changes that you saw in them were the ones that were done by the principals and their administrative teams. The changes that had the global things in it that weren't done as track changes were the things that Ellen and Retta and Ginny worked on as part of our CNE committee. We also, after the meeting, Mrs. Moran was nice enough to go through and look for any edits that didn't change the meaning of anything. For example, she found some misspellings, slungshots instead of slingshots, some inconsistencies with people putting 12 o'clock and not 12 p.m., things like that. So I am looking for an approval this evening. If the board would rather me go through and do all of those track changes in the documents of what was made at CNE, I'm happy to do that as well. There's one other clarification that I would like to get from the board. If you notice, in the document, we had different district vision and missions that were printed in a lot of the books. And we decided at CNE that we would make sure that it was consistent in all of them. However, I know that this board is currently working on their district vision and mission, and that won't be done by the time that this gets printed, because we do put these in like our planner at Mountain View. So I'm looking for some direction from the board, if that's something that we should take out of all of the books, the district vision and mission, knowing that we're working on that. Or if you'd like us to leave the one in that is current, but again, is right now in progress. So I'm looking for a little direction from the board with that.
Go ahead, Dan.
So I got the opportunity to actually spend about 3 hours going through everything. I had 2 pages of notes, some of which is what you have described.
Great.
Unfortunately, they're still sitting on my desk. I remember most of them, but I don't think we want to go through tonight and go over them.
Great.
I would appreciate getting a clean copy.
With the track changes, Dan?
With or without the track changes is fine with me, because I can read it with track changes, whatever everybody else would rather do. But because I found some other things in there, capitalized PM, AM, those are the little things.
Yep.
But there were a few of the other ones I would have to go to the east. There were inconsistencies such as one of the middle MVMS referred to a high school, something. And I said, why is that an MVMS? Talking about the high school. Things of that nature that I wanted to bring up. So it would be nice to get either the track changes or something that incorporates everything that everyone's done so far. I can cross them off my question list because they've been corrected. Because it was hard, because I was looking, I said, this is not there. They said they were supposed to be corrected. They're not really corrected. If that's, if we can get that reasonably, so that we have plenty of time before the next meeting, we could, I would appreciate being able to do that.
Retta, go ahead.
I'm wondering if it would be possible for Dan, for you to send your comments to Wendy so she could make those changes before she sends it to everyone?
I can go through and make the ones that were not already comment on tonight. Much of them had to do with the inconsistency from what I saw from not only the general comments, but each school had comments of what they intended to do. Mm-hmm. And some of those intentions weren't in the track changes.
Right.
Okay, and so that's, anything that's not part of that, I could send those to Wendy.
Yep. So I'm happy to do that. So just again, for the board to know, the reason why I didn't make those is because I wanted the full board to see all of the work that CNE committee had done, because they made some significant, suggestions at the meeting. But I'm happy to go through and make those. And Dan, if you have any other further things, please reach out to me. I'm happy to look into those as well.
Okay.
Okay? But if I also could get some direction on the vision and mission, because I want to make sure if that's something that I am taking out, that with those track changes, I'm sending that out as well.
Ginny, did you have your hand up before?
No.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Ellen.
We already have a mission vision. Yes, it's going to change at some point. This still needs to go to print, right? So, is there any harm in leaving what is? And then the next time around, next year, we go to the new one? Would there be any problem in doing that?
I can opine, if I may.
Go ahead, Dan.
If we do what we're expected to do, Retta, at June and have a new one, the school season starts on September 1 with a 16, 18, 2-year-old mission statement that was approved later.
Forever ago.
Would it be appropriate, or could we do a redirection in the pamphlet? Because we've been doing that with some of the policies, because JICL-R, the regulation for that policy, and we're pointing to a different area, say, go to the website, see it. I would like to see the mission and vision statement in each book, because it makes sense, but I don't like having an old one that we know is most likely going to be old, brand new.
So direct to see,
The website or something to wherever it is, and perhaps if it's something we can do more frequently, if that's what we're doing earlier, knowing that we want perhaps to put it in the book, we may want to do it right after we finish the budget.
fine with that.
So Nicole
make
had
sense?
her hands up. She may have some
Yeah, I was just going to add,
insight.
and Rita and Shane, feel free to jump in, but we actually worked a lot on this today. The mission and vision statements themselves are going to be pretty much the same. I think we're recommending. It's really the guiding principles that we were kind of combining the two into one document. So maybe it's that we actually keep that mission and vision statement, but we just don't include the guiding principles in this version and direct people to the website or wherever it's going to live to see those.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
You
and
wanna add
I
to
think
that?
that's a great idea because it's mostly language. It's not a big change. And even with the guiding principles, it's not, we're just trying to be more concise and, as Nicole mentioned, get rid of the school board mission vision and just, if there's anything that needs to come over, we're going to add it. But I think that might be a nice compromise.
It's more like wordsmithing.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Could the subcommittee share with us what they've done so far, so it gives us a little idea what that would be?
Not tonight.
Okay, well, not tonight, of course.
We've got, yeah, we could do it, by the next meeting, we could
Okay.
come up with a draft. It's got all the track changes in it, and
Right.
it's, it would not be.
There were a couple of documents we did between the April and November. We made some changes in November because we took some of what I had been calling the editorializing out of one of them, and I'm not sure where we ended up or landed. And that's why I'm curious, because some of them had statements in it that wasn't a mission. It wasn't of what we're doing. It just said wordy words.
Yeah, those are the guiding principles.
Those were the, okay.
Yeah, and there's two versions.
Yeah.
The one that was done in April was the school district mission, and the one that was approved in November was the school board mission, and that was in 2022. So
Right.
the version that, we don't have a 2023 version, but we will have a 2024 version, so.
Okay.
But the mission and vision are mostly the same. I think we changed one word, which I don't think would be noticed if it were included in the handbook.
So it sounds like keep the mission and vision, take out the guiding principles. Is that what everybody? Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Dan, to your point, we agreed that there were some statements in there that weren't really guiding principles. They were just kind of statements. And so those are some of the things we're looking at to possibly just remove.
So is everybody good with that? Go ahead, Jenny.
I just have one thing. Dan, could you get those things to Wendy fairly quickly? Because we've tabled these a couple of times, and we're getting up to printing time, I
Actually, it's
believe.
the first time that we haven't acted on it. We haven't tabled this at all.
We've had it for quite a while.
We got
Sent to you.
this 4 weeks ago.
Right.
Yes.
And then we didn't do it on a meeting because of an agenda change. So it's been a while, and we're getting close to printing deadlines for getting them all out. So if you could just...
If I might channel what Retta said, it won't be tonight.
Oh, that's fine.
Within the next couple of days.
I'm hoping, I have meetings tonight, of course, I have meetings tomorrow, and I'm work all day. So the earliest I think I might be able to get to it is Wednesday. It's also tax season, so.
Does that work?
Yep,
Yeah,
as soon as
that's
I can
fine.
get
Just-
it, and what we'll do is we'll start working on all of the other changes so that, you know, we do have some things going on in the back end while I'm waiting for Dan's. And of course, any other board members that have suggestions that they've seen, please do send them along.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Is
And that-
everybody
Dan,
good
that was
with
just
that?
a suggestion, because
Oh,
Yeah,
totally
Yeah, we're gonna
agree.
get them
of printing
printed.
Don't want
deadlines,
to
yeah.
slow it down, plus we want to get it back to us
Right.
Right.
quickly. Yeah, totally agree.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate
we're all
that.
good with that? All right, so
you.
moving on to administrative assistant project update.
So we'll tee this one up. I think we're going to invite Kate and Lori up to the table with Mr. Gross. So in terms of a little introduction, Kate and Scott had a wonderful idea to reconsider and to look at the current model of how we use our administrative assistants to best support our schools. We set out with a number of elements that we were trying to cover, such as built-in redundancy, that there was a secondary and a tertiary person for every role that each of the schools needed. So this has been Scott and Kate's vision from the beginning. Wonderful to have Lori in the role now. So with that, Mrs. McGrath, Mr. Gross.
Thank you, everyone. So I do want to introduce Lori Barbaro, who is our admin assistant supervisor, who has been just doing an outstanding job. This is, as we stated when we first started, this is going to be 3, 4, 5 year endeavor. We know that there's a lot involved in it, and you know, we're going to talk a little bit more as we go through, you know, some of the talking points, but, you know, Lori has done probably the most important thing when you step into a role, and that is build relationships and build, you know, trust within the team. So I want to thank you so much for that. There's a couple of people who are not here. So Laura Taylor has been very instrumental. We meet every Thursday for the most part, as well as Betsy Murdick. So they've been invaluable in terms of, you know, looking at some of the job roles. There's a lot that we're looking into, and there are subject matter experts in a lot of these processes. So if you turn to page 2, and Brian alluded to a lot of this, is that, you know, why did we restructure the district's admin assistant, you know, team? So just as for those who are maybe watching on television, for the most part, our schools acted somewhat autonomously, meaning that we had admin assistants that were working for principals, and with that, there really wasn't a whole lot of the ability for consistency between schools, and the backup roles was really the biggest one. So that's what Brian had mentioned, and in conversations, you know, with Kate, we had, I think, one employee had to go out for a while, and it really accentuated the need where, wow, we need to have other schools support another school. And with the advent of technology, and I think we all know we struggled through COVID, but one of the positives from COVID was the ability to leverage technology. So Microsoft Teams and the ability to do video conferencing, share your desktop, record steps that you take in a process. All those things we never really did prior to COVID, and now post-COVID, it's really been part of what we're doing. So the notion of helping someone by sharing your screen from one building to another was not there. Now it is there. So we wanted to promote consistent processes and collaboration. I think we're starting to see that. And with that, you know, at the SAU, you know, Kate has a ton of process documents in terms of how things are done in the HR department. I know in the finance, the business office, because we only do processes one time a year, you forget. So yes, we do have written instructions, but we also have them recorded as well with screenshots and, you know, just walking you through that process. And we've been starting to slowly do that with our admin assistants as well. Having backups is critically important, so that if somebody in one particular school is out on a leave, or maybe there's some employee turnover, the ability for another school to step in and to help them remotely, if possible, and if not, physically being at the school has been that's one of our our goals. Providing training and professional development. To me, this is probably one of the biggest eye-openers. It is no secret, Kate, what do you think, we have like 20, 30 different platforms? There's so many. I mean, whether that's, scheduling or how we do payroll, you name it, there is a platform. And having people who have expertise in those platforms is challenging. PowerSchool Student Information System is the lifeblood of kind of what we do in our school system. And it's, right, Lori, it's safe to say it's pretty specialized, right? And we have probably 3 or 4 people within the district, admin assistant-wise, who are really strong with that. So what we've recognized that it's not something, especially on the PowerSchool side, where we can provide you with some training, and then, 3 months later, someone is out, for a month on a sick leave, and, you can step in. You really need to be involved with it a lot. So having a core team of people that knows PowerSchool, very, very important. And then really defining our job roles and defining the job roles and responsibilities. So what we saw was that we had certain folks who were, say, principals, secretaries in one building, did a whole lot different tasks than principals, secretaries in another building. And we're looking to try to make things a bit more uniform. And then the last thing that I think we collectively, and this is, if you want to speak up on this, Kate, is there's so many important job roles that, one of the more important ones is the person who greets someone. So here at the high school, Michelle is our receptionist. She's like an air traffic controller, all right? I don't know what else to say. And she does a phenomenal job. And without her landing all these planes simultaneously, this place does not function nearly as well as it should. So everybody's got really mission critical jobs here. They just do different things. And when we interviewed folks, we saw that, firsthand. The other part about defining the job roles and the responsibilities is that we have a lot of specialty jobs, meaning we have an athletic director, secretary, we have guidance department, admin assistant, we have folks who deal with payroll only, we have folks who deal with purchasing. So there's a lot that is going on to support the students, staff, and the community by these individuals, and we are learning every single day all of those nuances. So with that, anything that you guys want to add?
No, I think we're truly building a wonderful, strong team. I know when I first started in this role in November, full-time, I've been in this district for 16 years, and I will tell you, we had 5 very strong administrative teams. I met for the first time people who worked in the high school. In 16 years, I had never met them. And I'm proud to say now, after having a couple of retreats we've all gotten together, we are building one strong, cohesive unit, which I'm very proud to say they can step in, or, I can call Maple, or Maple Avenue can call the high school and say, hey, I have a question, and they all know each other. So that was our first step, and I think taking in the right direction to build a solid foundation of one, and then we all step in and help each other. So we're very proud of that.
Kate, you want to add anything?
That's great.
Oh, thank you.
All
Hang
right.
on one second, Jared had his hand up.
Scott, just with you mentioning some things of sharing of roles and responsibilities across the organization, do we still have security controls in place so that somebody from an HR can't also work with the finance people, or work on the finance system itself?
Great question. So yes, there are certain roles within our software packages where certain people, you have to have your checks and balances, we call them internal controls, where certain people can't have access to other things. So those are all still present. But what we are finding is that, I'll use registrations for an example. We could have different people in different schools handle different parts of the registration process, and still make it work, provided that we're using one consistent, process document. Are there nuances between a kindergarten registration and a kid who transfers from Iowa to Goffstown at the high school level with transcripts? Of course there are, but the majority of the process looks very, very similar, and we're trying to leverage that. But the permissions and the security piece is broken down by the jobs that they do, so we don't get into any issues with people, doing things that they shouldn't, or being responsible for tasks that are too closely aligned.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't see anyone. Go ahead.
So with our stages of implementation, and when Lori was brought on, I think the first thing that Kate and I shared with her is that, one, this is going to be a multi-year endeavor. We said the same exact thing to the school board. We said the same exact messaging to all the admin assistants. And I think that gave them the comfort of knowing that this was not going to be revolutionary. This was going to be more evolutionary. We're going to take the time, to do it right, to get the training under everyone's belt, and to make it comfortable, for them, because they are learning a lot of new skills. And I think the first thing that we shared with you was your primary job was to build trust amongst the team and those relationships, and I don't think you could have done any better, Lori, with that. The part that I wanted to say in terms of the training and professional development is that, and I think this goes across the board with all of our jobs. So providing training to all positions within the school district is it's essential for us to improve. This is one group of individuals that can honestly say we could have done better in the past, all right? So we recently, a month or so ago, 2 months ago, we had a professional development day, a training day for all of our admin assistants. We were able to bring them together at Mountain View Middle School, and my big takeaway from that was that the collaboration between people who never really talked a whole lot because they were in different schools, but yet they perform the same tasks. I'll give you an example. We have special education admin assistants. Well, they were sharing some of their best practices and some of how they do their jobs together, and just the smile on their faces and the fact that they got so many good takeaways. But we never really had that before because they were all reporting to different people. Now they all report to Lori. So to me, that was the biggest smile that I had was seeing that level of collaboration. And then the other takeaway was that, when are we doing this again? So we surveyed them, and they want more of that type of collaborative opportunities, the ability to train together. So just like we have teacher workshop days, we need to start to think about providing these folks with the level of training that's needed to do the job. There are some very technical things that we're asking of our admin assistants now that we might not have asked them 10 years ago. And that level of proficiency is desperately needed, and the training is going to be a very important component of that. When we talk about leveraging skills and the knowledge between all of our schools, in case you don't know, Kate, we've had quite a bit of not turnover, but people have switched jobs, right? I mean, is it safe to say about half right now, or
So
more?
recently, due to
Retirements
retirements
and-
mostly retirements. So we've had, staff of administrative assistants who have been here for a long, long time. And part of our taking on this was we had, I think, 4 that were leaving at one point. And we said, well, this would be a good opportunity as we have new folks coming in to start to explore this process. So, and then this year we're losing 3 more of our beloved folks who are going on to, focus on grandchildren and the next stage of life. So it truly has been an impetus for us exploring this new model.
Yeah. So this one is probably, I'm sorry I always pick on you, Jared, because I know this is what you do for work and everything, but so where I kind of get geeked out was, I don't know, I didn't suggest it, I think maybe you did, but we were using a Gantt chart, and Lori has been working on all the different job functions that our admin assistants do and when they do them throughout the year. And that's, so I think we're getting kind of granular in how we're looking at things in terms of, maybe we, again, it might seem obvious that you wouldn't grant somebody vacation the week before school starts, but you start to see that there are certain weeks and months throughout the school year that are more mission critical than other ones. We will also see that depending upon the school, there are greater admin assistant needs in one school in one particular week or month of the year than there are in others, and the ability to move work and to leverage all of our admin assistants. So maybe we have to push resources to one school for this, 3-week blip, whereas before, we were just really narrowly focused on, how does that impact that one school. So that, to me, was one of our biggest takeaways. The other one.
Can I speak to that just
Yep.
for a minute? So it was Betsy,
that's
one
right, Betsy,
of our
right.
instrumental team
Yeah.
members who had brought that chart and, had laid out the admin assistant work and really helped us to have that vision, that visual of how the workflow went with each of the tasks. But with that, so much of our work recently, in addition to building the team, has been about right sizing. So we have contract days that are all over the place for these roles. So we have there are 8 positions that are the full year, and then the remaining positions, there's about 10 of them, have contracts with different days, 187, 206, 203. And as we tried to piece together things like meeting together for professional development, or people who do payroll as an assignment, but they don't have enough contract days to actually do all the payrolls that occur throughout the year. So in addition to, kind of being the priority focus right now, that is a big one, is looking at the upcoming year, making sure the contracts are appropriate to support the work that needs to be done, and really right-sizing, because the work does ebb and flow between buildings depending on what time of year it is. So Glen Lake, registration opens in January as they start to welcome in the preschoolers are rolling, whereas the rest of the buildings might not be until a little later. So the right sizing has been a real critical piece that the Gantt chart really opened our eyes to, that we're focused pretty heavily on right now.
Did you want to add anything?
I do not geek out over Gantt charts, so I'm very sorry about that. I do not. I've learned a lot about them, but it is not my wheelhouse.
Yeah, so the other, really the beauty of the process that we're going through is that communication that we're having with our admin assistants and our administrators. Because I will tell you, I'll be honest, this is something that is new to everyone, and as with any change, you're going to have people who may adopt it a little quicker than others. But I think we're starting to slowly see, the buy-in from all entities. But again, this is going to be a multi-year process. So I want the board to at least understand that we don't expect that we're going to have this thing completed within the next 6 months. This is something that's ongoing. And the level of conversations that we're having on a weekly basis, I can speak for myself, that I am so much more informed in terms of how schools operate and the challenges that they have. And just today, we were talking about guidance here at Goffstown High School, and the numbers of students that are on different tracks for, and that's a law change, right, Brian, where now they can have different graduation tracks, et cetera. It's pretty complicated in terms of assessing where students are if they do transfer in from another school, because now a lot of students we have to compare a program of studies at another high school, how does it compare to this one? And there's a lot of nuances, to that. The other thing that we learned, through our conversations is that the roles of these individuals varies from day to day. Guidance, as I mentioned before, since COVID, there's been a lot of dealing with kids' mental health and their social, emotional, how they are throughout the day, and triaging that, try to getting them to a counselor or someone else for assistance right away. And when we talk to some of these folks, we found that, the job that they do now is a lot different than what it was, even 2 to 3 years ago. So, and it allows us to kind of adapt that same way. So, What are we working on right now? Right now, we're assessing school registrations. We've been working on that, for a while. And I will share with you that I don't think that we have any silver bullet here in terms of, okay, this is exactly what is going to be the perfect process. But I can tell you that we're going to get to a spot where we think we're going to get to like 80 to 90% of what's a best practice, and allow for some variation, for the schools to kind of adapt. And then technology will help us, but then there are other things where technology can't help us. So technology can't help us on old laws or laws that are on the books that require us to do something a certain way. So Brian and I have shared with you that, we call it the Lisa Johnson bill, where we had to mandatory U.S. mail IEP out, or scheduling that for parents, and hopefully in the next 90 days it'll be done via email. But there's a lot of things that are on the books which make it difficult for any school district, much less ours, to change our process, because it requires you to do it in a way that seems somewhat antiquated. So that's one of our challenges. Purchasing is something that we believe we could centralize a bit more, and have schools help each other out, in an easier type of fashion. It's one of our processes that is probably the least complicated, I would say. And with the ability, we have implemented things like carts. So whether that be an Amazon cart or a Staples type of cart, people are able to purchase things, put it into a cart, and then the purchaser then buys it. So we can leverage some technology there. Special education, for those of you, Ellen, you worked in this environment, it's very regulated. There's a lot of laws, et cetera. But I think what I've seen is that the level of conversation is great, and they're starting to share, again, what they do well. We have quite a bit of folks. We have, 3 people that are retiring, right?
Yes.
With combined, it's
Over almost 80 years.
80 years worth of knowledge and experience there. So it's going to be a challenge for us to, get other folks kind of up to speed. We're going to do that, but I think we have to expect that we're going to have some institutional loss in terms of that knowledge that we're going to have to overcome. We have a lot of specialty roles and responsibilities. I mentioned before about athletics. Other ones include student activity accounts. So that's someone who is a bookkeeper. These are fundraisers that are done. It could be something as little as, collecting $5 from every kid to go on a field trip. Well, someone has to account for all that money, have to make that deposit, have to cut the check. All those things, kind of have to happen. It all has to be done the proper way with controls, et cetera. So we have folks who do that in our buildings. The high school is obviously the biggest user of that. Receptionist duties, they vary from school. Every school has its own, unique needs. Obviously, if you go to, Glen Lake with the little ones, there might be some greater needs there, or dealing with parents, than here, say, at the high school. So we have to recognize that there are those nuances. And then the ones that I know I focus, or I have a lot of interplay with, and that is payroll. So we have, we have 400 plus employees, I'd say?
Over 500.
Over 500 employees in Goffstown. Those include substitutes, coaches, you name it, but you have to process payroll on all these people, and we do have systems for that, but those systems are not foolproof, and they do require a certain level of skill as well to make sure that we do it right. So with that, training is needed. So with that, I would say that our takeaways, Lori being that consistent leader and providing that level of supervision has been excellent so far. And I think it is allowing, Lori meets with Kate and I, and sometimes Laura as well as Betsy, bouncing things off. Not everything goes perfectly, so we do work through different scenarios when there are openings, and we do have openings due to retirement, et cetera. We talk about what's the best way to leverage that opening. That might mean taking position in one school that is, school year and converting that one to a full year and then swapping that one to the other where that need is less. So all of those things are happening. And, the one thing that I hear over and over again, especially in the community, maybe it's because it's election time, is we got to operate with more like a business. We are doing that. I mean, we are looking at open requisitions, we're looking at processes, best practices, all those things that I know I did when I worked in the private sector. We're working on, as we speak. It's not, again, we're not perfect by any stretch, but I think we're getting there. We're getting there slowly. And lastly, I want to leave this with the board, and that is, it's really going to be about training and training and training and more training. Because there's a lot that these folks are expected to do and to know. And that ranges from things that are technical, making sure, so we use a lot of electronic signatures, we have workflows, et cetera. We've got to get folks trained on those electronic signatures that you do on PandaDoc. There's workflows associated with that, whether it be Excel training. There are scheduling softwares, there's softwares for 504 plans, you name it, i.e. there is software and platforms galore at SAU 19. And there are folks who have to be knowledgeable about them, and then there are folks who have to be subject matter experts, and we need those people. And we have some of those people. We have to nurture and develop that. So training, more training over the next 3 years, and ongoing, so.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Sounds great. I imagine all organizations, including school districts, have to go through this aligning, structuring, training that's ongoing. One of my concerns is, it's always a concern when you're looking down the road, we're going to have changes in the people who are doing these jobs over this time of change, so they're not going to have historical knowledge, they're not going to understand what's going on. We're going to be having changes in administrative and assistant administrators throughout the district or SAU. How is that supposed to happen for something that's going to take a couple of years to bring about? I can see a lot of all this wonderful effort getting lost somewhere, because we all know when staff changes, there's a really big hiccup in the processes that have been set up or are about to be set up. I'm a little concerned because this is district-wide, if not SAU-wide, I don't know, but certainly district-wide, and each of these people, whoever they are, they know how to do a million different things in the environment they're in each school or office, or what their tasks are. And one of them leaves, and the person coming in is not going to know what's going on.
See, but herein lies the brilliance of the model, Ellen, is those changes are going to happen.
Right.
We have 3 retirements that are happening right now.
Right.
Kate said at 80 years of institutional knowledge, the ability to have a coherent, cohesive team that's working together, that's collaborating, that has shared goals, they're doing together, they're doing trainings together, built-in redundancy for all these different functions. That's exactly why we're doing this work. And I will share with the board, this is not the type of work that school districts typically do. This is a very innovative project. I commend Scott and Kate for the vision to do this. I had nothing to do with the vision on this. I can't always say that, but this one I had nothing to do with. And what they're doing is really indicative of a high-end organization. The ability to look at all these different processes, to build a true team with a leader, and to look at the redundancy. This is exactly why we should be doing this, Ellen.
And
So
I don't disagree.
Yeah, this.
I'm concerned about its continuity and ongoingness.
This is building something that is and will be self-sustaining.
Okay.
So the idea that Lori shared that we had people who worked in buildings but never saw one another. So doing the same role between Mountain View and the high school, there was no collaboration. They didn't have a relationship. Those people do now. They have shared work. They have shared processes. I think we have codified elements of our processes in ways that we've never even been able to envision before. So I think you should be confident that this project is and will continue to be fruitful for us, recognizing that it will still take years to do, but we have to have redundancy for all of these processes. We have to make sure that we're doing them efficiently, that we can support when we have changes in staff. That's exactly why we're doing this work.
And if I could just add to that, as you think about some of the shifting that's also going to happen with our administrative team, right? The administrators, I think one of the benefits that we've seen with having one supervisor for all of these positions, again, speaks to the consistency within the model, right? So when we have a new principal at Bartlett, that doesn't mean that all of those processes are going to change because of that new administrator. That means that the processes are stable and consistent district-wide, and that administrator is going to come in with that solid ground that these things are working, that they're, supporting the district, that there's consistency between the buildings. It actually will help with that. And then we're also working with Jen Freitas as an example, the director of special ed, that she's also asking for consistent processes. The Excel spreadsheets that we're tracking data on, that they're consistent between buildings so that when things come to her as reports, it all looks the same. She's not trying to figure out, this building reports it to me this way, one gives it a little bit of a different twist. So I think it also helps as we do have new staff come in because those systems are created, and there'll be cross-training amongst each other within the buildings, but it'll also help to have that strong foundation when we do have new
This
staff
setup,
come in.
I think, is wonderful. I remain concerned with how it can be implemented consistently, giving all the ins and outs that we already know are going to be happening. Once it's established, that's one thing, and keeping it going and adjusting as things change, as they always do.
Yep.
I think it's great that this is being undertaken and pulling it together. All those people, let's face it, the administrative assistants sort of run everything.
Sort of.
They're the blood line.
Let me demystify a little more. Sort of.
I used to say when they're absent, close school. You don't know how everything runs without these people. I truly understand it. I really hope that this will be, I'm sure it will be with you guys doing it, getting going and set up that without you, or one of you, or two of you, whomever else is part of this, it can continue in its development and pull this together. It's hard to do something as dynamic as this if key components are gone in the midst of it all.
And we're seeing that right now as we speak.
Yeah.
So we've lost some people, and there are holes or gaps that we have in terms of processes that we have to figure out. And I think what Kate alluded to, though, is that with going forward with process documentation, whether that be written process documentation, combination of videos, we'll be able to capture, how things should be done. And I think, in some of the interviews that we've already conducted, we had a lot of our admin assistants who did, keep records or, here's how I do a particular process. But we also had some who didn't. And that's where, honestly, we are struggling a little bit, on that side of it, filling in those types of gaps. And I keep going back to this is going to be a 2, 3, 4-year process, not a 6-month one, because there's a lot to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Scott touched on this a bit, but as I was hearing this conversation, to me it sounded very much like what a smart business would do. Documenting processes, making sure there's redundancies, it's efficient, it's streamlined, and make sure things don't fall through the cracks. So I think this is great work. And I'd love to hear if there's anything the board can do to support it outside of the training that you mentioned.
Thank you, Nicole. Go ahead, Caroline.
So I agree. I think that this was absolutely needed. You identified when there was a need and not only trying to fill the spot that was open at the time, but figuring out a long-term solution of building a solid foundation, figuring out what you would need to kind of prevent that from happening in the future. I think at the same time, you have provided individuals with knowledge, skill, and ability that they did not have previously and maybe would not have had the opportunity to gain some of that. You've made their positions a little bit more versatile where they can fill in somewhere else or take on a job and have more skill and ability that they wouldn't have had you not done this. And then most importantly, Lori, what you're doing of building the trust is some of like the most important and hardest work that you might have to do. But it also provides them with like a greater sense of belonging, which is really important. It's one thing to come into a building with a lot of individuals who know each other, but for somebody that's a huge role of the building and makes everybody function, helps everybody function, but doesn't really have a larger group to belong to, if they're asked to do something and really don't know how to do it, now they have a group to lean on and to say something like, you know what, I'm going to ask a colleague of mine who works at this other school who is really skilled in this area, and I'm going to get back to you. So I think that that's wonderful. I think that this has, great potential, and so kudos to you guys. You're doing an awesome job.
Thanks, Caroline. Anyone else? Questions,
said.
Comments? Yeah, definitely well said.
And I'm not going to forget about her, too. Denise has been doing this similarly with SAU, right? Executive,
Yeah.
right? Support staff, Brian? I mean, I know that.
Yeah, so
This is not just an us thing. I mean, Denise has been doing this as well.
So
at
we
her
have
level.
this crazy idea that the field of public education needs to support itself. And when you have people like Mrs. Moran, who is a very knowledgeable, experienced person, we wanted to be able to share that wealth with other school districts. So, I don't know, how many years ago we started doing this? And by the way, get out of the way and let the people do the work, because it starts with an idea that, we thought it might be a good idea to get executive assistants together, and next thing you know, we're 4 or 5 years into this thing. They meet without the superintendents. We support the work as best we can, but we get out of their way. And this just continues to allow the people that are doing this work to have resources, to have colleagues that they can reach out to, and to support the field of public education. Because if we had a brand-new executive assistant, I would need help right now, because Denise wouldn't know what she knows. If we had somebody who was brand new in that role, we would be leveraging and leaning hard on other school districts who have somebody with more support. So we're doing that. Denise is doing that. There's a wonderful executive assistant from Merrimack who has a lot of experience. She and Denise together are kind of single-handedly helping support the entire south central region of these school districts, who have, by the way, look around the room, they have brand new superintendents, they have brand new business administrators. Not everybody knows and has the history. So thank you for bringing that up, but it's just a testament to the great work that Denise does. But the public sector needs to support itself. We need to help other school districts do this important work and build the redundancy for public education in this state. We believe that strongly.
Thank you, Brian. All right, is anything else? All right, thank you guys so
Thank
much
you so
for
much.
coming. All right, moving on to our committee reports, A&F. Dan?
Yeah,
you
before I
wanna-
make a motion, I need to correct myself from a little earlier where I said we've had the handbooks for 4 weeks. We've only had them for 2 weeks. We got them at 11:47 a.m. 2 Mondays ago. I think that's important. It's
Thank you, Dan.
offering a motion to approve a total manifest value this evening of $1,839,483.35.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Caroline. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
We have payroll taxes and benefits of close to $1.5 million. That's most of everything. 75 to 80% is all people that run the show. Special education expenses, $5,000 and over. The Bedford School District for out-of-district services, $33,200. I'm going to round these out. Durham School Services for in-district and out-of-district transportation for 1 month with increased rates, $118,000. Home for Little Wanderers, out of district, $7,400. Johnson ABA Consulting, SPED Contracted Services, $8,400. Nashua Children's Alliance, out of district, $6,883. The Northeast Deaf Contracted Services, $5,500. Strong Foundations, out of district, $5,100. General expenses, $5,000 and over. Amazon, $6,000. A&F talked tonight, we're going to do an audit on the Amazon because that's like an all-encompassing group now. And so, it's a lot of little things that would have been, but now it's grouped out. So we're going to take a peek at that. Dead River Company, $31,000 for propane. Goffstown Truck Center /STA. Regular Ed Transportation, $12,500. Eversource for our electricity, $40,800. School Specialty, we bought some student desks and chairs at Mountain View for $6,800. And last but not least, Performance Food Service, $20,000. And I don't know the status of the chocolate milk, but I think there was problems with the cartons.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Jarrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the school specialty line, Scott, is this coming out of a maintenance line, or is this coming out of like a CRF fund?
Now, this comes out of school furniture line. It was budgeted.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jarrett. Anyone else? All right, so I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome, and I think Scott can probably run
Yep.
through our expenditure and
Yeah, so
revenue
just,
reports.
before I get to that one, I just wanted to let the board know that the next scheduled meeting, will be holding a public hearing to accept safe grants. So for the community to know, Goffstown received safe grants in the amount of $383,572.04. And this was across all 5 of our schools. Bartlett received almost $40,000 for emergency alerting and security cameras. Glen Lake received a little over $44,000 for access controls and cameras. Maple Avenue received the maximum award of $100,000 for access controls, emergency alerting, and security cameras. Mountain View Middle School also received the cap of $100,000 for security cameras. The total request was a little over $105,000, so depending upon our actuals in terms of when we get final pricing on those, if it falls within the 100, we're great. If not, we're going to have to figure that one out, whether or not we do all of the cameras. And then the next one was Goffstown High School, $100,000. That one, we know we're going to have a shortfall because the total project estimate was over $157,000. So that one, more than likely, we won't be able to replace every analog camera with a digital camera. So we'll have to probably, just do the best that we can, with that. The good news is that they've already come up with a wait list for projects, and Bartlett Elementary is number 3 on the round 3 wait list. A little over $26,000, and so we're hopeful that there will be some monies left over, and we'll be able to get that project in as well. So right now, I know our IT director, Steve Bourget, is working with these the companies to get go ahead with the pricing and the contracts and all of that. So we're very pleased that we were able to receive that level of state funding. I know that I've complained about state funding. This is a nice thing to help us, for the school district. And New Boston also received some funding as well. So that's they received a little over $70,000 for similar type projects. So there'll be a lot of work that will be going on over the summer and into the fall on those types of projects. So just so you're aware of that. In terms of the expenditure and revenue reports, what I shared with the A&F committee, and I'll start with revenues. So on the revenue side, we are seeing greater than expected revenues coming on investment earnings. So we did not budget for the more robust interest that we're getting in our interest-bearing checking account, which is almost 3% now. So we'll see a little bit more there. Our tuition from New Boston also looks pretty favorable, at this point as well. So my prediction or estimate is that we'll probably see about a $600,000 to $700,000 over collection or over on what we estimated. So that's good. On the expenditure side, we're tracking more expenses than I thought we would at this point, and that's simply driven by we have more out-of-district placements, and the transportation for SPED has obviously the price went up, and we have more of them, so that's adding to that. That being said, I think we're on target to hit our estimate in terms of the amount to reduce taxation. It's again a combination of underspend of the budget and greater than expected revenue. So. As I say continuously, you develop a budget, and in some cases, you're developing that budget 18 months out, and there are certain things that you can't anticipate. Special education, out-of-district placements is one of those things. So between the transportation and the out-of-district placements, that's probably $400,000 or $500,000 that we did not, kind of budget for or forecast for. At this point, I think there's no bells or whistles going off in terms of any alarms. I think we're on track to where we should be. And then as we know more, as we get to April and May is when we start to project what that fund balance will look like, and we'll know more. We've had certain things, like I mentioned, servers, et cetera, where, if a server goes and it's a $40,000 or $50,000 server that is responsible for our network connectivity within the district, we have to replace that as well. So those things happen, and they have to be dealt with within the budget. So wanted to let you know about that. Lastly, I did inform A&F committee that couple of things, that there was some drainage work done at Maple Avenue Elementary School that the town did. There was some flooding going on the Maple Avenue in that area, and the town just went above and beyond here. They put in piping. They covered the piping, and there is a strong possibility that we're going to have the benefit of some additional employee parking next fall. So. Probably 8 to 10 spots worth. So if you get a chance to go to Maple Ave, so I want to thank our good friends at Goffstown DPW for they did an incredible job. If you see that, so not only did it alleviate flooding in that area, but it created some more parking spaces. So I want to thank them. And then last but not least, we are going through with an update on our e-finance, our financial software at the SAU now. We will be doing some testing over the next month and a half, and we're doing that to leverage the fact that Laura is still with us, and having that extra hand who knows the system better than anybody makes sense to do it now. So we are doing that. And that, I think, is it. I will talk about the ESSER grant a little later.
All right, thanks, Scott. All right, anybody have any questions for Scott? No? All right, moving on, Budget Committee, Jared.
No meetings.
No meetings. PNC, Retta.
Yes, PNC met this evening. As we discussed earlier, we talked about the mission and vision statement, and we're making good progress. We had anticipated that we'd get a draft to you by April. If we can share something earlier, we will. Also, if you haven't seen the homepage of the SAU website, there is all of the information about the budget and the warrant articles, and a video, including Scott and Nicole and Jared. So thank you all for participating in that. We do have Spring Fest. I reported that last time, and if you haven't done so, please just block out Saturday, April 13th. I will be sending out a survey to get people to sign up for being at the booth. And we talked about what kind of display to have. So we've had some great ideas. If anybody wants to contribute, just let us know any ideas of what we should be putting on that display. Some of the ideas we talked about includes an infographic, some of the accomplishments, and also pictures of board members, just so they can see who's representing them. So anything else you think we should have, let us know. Did a quick update on the website. That's right now it's being worked on by the IT department, just getting the platform up. We just have a list of things that we'd like to see in it, so not much to update there. And our next meeting is April 1st.
All right, thank you, Retta. All right, policy review. We have a meeting next Monday, the 11th, at 5:30 at the SCU. And further down, we'll have questions and answers on policies from last time. So C&E.
Okay, we will work on our handbooks again at our next meeting. And our next meeting is March 11th at the SAU at 7 p.m.
Great, thank you, Jenny. SAU board meeting, Shane?
No meetings scheduled. I don't think there's anything scheduled until after the election, so.
Okay, in April. Great, thank you. Technology committee?
We are
Dan?
going to be meeting probably within the next few weeks because the security audit has come in today. It's several hundred pages. Steve Bourget has to go through it. Once he gets through it, we'll have it. Good news and bad news, we're going to have a meeting, and we're probably going to be 90 minutes to a couple of hours, but it's going to be non-public because it's part of the security, so.
Right, got it. Great, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, superintendent's report.
My first thing of the superintendent's report is I'd like Mrs. McGrath and Lori to go home, please.
Yes.
So please, thank you for being with us. Please go home.
Definitely go
I
home.
thought they were doing the puzzle, Brian. That's
I know,
why.
I was wondering why they were sitting there.
I believe that puzzle's
It's
already
done.
complete, Mr. Gross.
It's a nice puzzle.
So thank you.
Thank you.
A
Good
few
night.
updates for the board. Mr. Cloutier is exactly correct. The IT department, we had a meeting today with SAU leadership and our IT folks that we met with Homeland Security and went through the recent cybersecurity audit that we did. So we got a high-level overview of that. I will share with the public and with the board, the report is not a public document. There are special provisions that protect it from 91A requests and some of the other pieces. So the tech committee will be meeting. Mr. Bourget is already working on scheduling that, and there will be more to come. The short version is this is a multi-year endeavor that we will have costs associated with this over the months and the years to come. We continue to look at the Goffstown impact fee model. The board will recall that the town of Goffstown hired Fougere Planning to do an evaluation of the current impact fee model. We're meeting with Mr. Fougere next week, and among the other things that we're discussing, the capacity of our schools is something that we are having a little bit of a disagreement with the historical capacity of the schools. And we're going to be meeting with Mr. Fougere to talk about that. This is important because we can only use impact fees for expansion of programs. So to really make sure that we have flexibility and continue to have the ability to use the money to benefit the students and the community is really important. So more to come on that. Next Tuesday will be a remote day for all of our schools due to voting that will be happening here at the high school as well as at Bartlett. We will be planning to offer new board member orientation if we have new school board members. And I'd like to thank, there's a great turnout of people running this year, so I'm excited and we look forward to the election. Mr. Gross, I don't think you mentioned, but we had a new bus route start today. So bus route 16 was added today to alleviate some of the overcrowding on a few of our runs. So that was successful. We received notification over the weekend, I think, that the CDC made some changes with respect to quarantine. Remember COVID? Remember COVID? Well, so there's no longer any requirements to isolate, to...
Yeah, the 5 days now.
Yeah, the 5-day quarantine piece is now removed, so we're working our way through that. And basically, you have to be fever-free, so this is now becoming much like any other illness that we deal with in our schools. So we're working through that. I wanted to let the executive committee know that you should have received an email from Mrs. McGrath today that we are holding an executive committee of the SAU meeting on Thursday. So if you're a part of that committee, we'll plan to see you Thursday. And Mr. Gross mentioned the drainage project. I also wanted to, again, just thank Adam Jacobs, the great work that DPW does. And you can tell, this is indicative of the relationship. So while Mr. Hillhouse was working on this project for the town, he was excited to tell Mr. Gross, I think I'm going to get you a few more parking spaces. Well, we need parking at Maple Ave in a very significant way. So many thanks to Goffstown DPW for the work that they're doing, and we really appreciate if we can get a little more parking, we really appreciate it. So I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions for me.
Brian, can I just make a clarification? For next Tuesday, it is a teacher workshop day, not a remote learning day, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was thinking that. I'm like,
That was my testing of Mrs. Kohler to see if she's paying attention.
I just know our teachers are involved in professional development and won't be available, so I just wanted to mention that.
Sorry, Lily.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Kids are applauding us right now.
It's a day off for kids.
Teacher workshop day.
Yeah,
Thank
teacher
you.
workshop. All right, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Anything else?
That's it.
Good. All right, so old business. We have questions and answers for policies from last time. Does anybody have any questions on any of these policies before they come next time for second reads? Go ahead, Retta.
I had a question, let me find it.
Which policy?
Policy EHAA,
Okay,
and it's on page 2.
this is the security stuff.
Yeah, so it's the paragraph in the middle, and it says accessing social networking websites, et cetera, during school hours is prohibited. Oh, that's for employees, just during school hours. But
Yeah.
it doesn't, can they use their computers for that at any time?
No.
Or is it, okay.
Yeah.
So this is just, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Did you answer your own question?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I just had to ask it on TV.
There you go. Thanks, Retta. Anyone else? Go ahead, Nicole.
I may have
Oh.
another one, but go ahead, Nicole.
I'll let Nicole go first. Go ahead.
I'm actually on the same policy, EHAA, on the first page, number 4.
Yep.
Looks like we have a list of things that we don't discriminate against, but we're removing gender, so I was just looking to see if there was some sort of reason why we might be doing that.
So gender
trying-
is
yeah.
already covered in policy AC.
I was reading through
So
this.
policy AC prohibits the discrimination or the refusal of any benefits of anything related to age, gender, sexuality, sexual orientation, disability status, et cetera. So I can't remember exactly what.
Yeah,
Yeah, so those
Steven-
other things are also
Yeah,
listed,
Steven
but we're
took
not
this
removing
out.
those. So my suggestion was maybe we just use the verbiage from AC so that it's consistent and we're not excluding anything, or we take the list out altogether.
Dan, do you remember, because I know Stephen went through these policies, why we took this out, or Shane?
There was,
I couldn't recall.
the specificity, I believe, was the undocumented terminology of what does gender-specific mean. There's no definition that we had
In any of the
within
policies.
here that we were talking about that said, okay, what does that really mean? And if someone wanted to use perhaps like a pronoun and didn't know the difference, and it did, are they in trouble now because of all of the conflict that could surround it?
Right.
That's why we were, the definition was
Yeah,
not,
I agree. The gender-specific comments is a little wonky verbiage-wise,
Yeah.
so that's why I thought maybe just use the same verbiage from AC so it's consistent and.
or what we try to do, rather than repeat another policy, is we refer to the policy
Yeah.
from within the policy. So if there was
Yeah.
something in there, that would not be inappropriate to just to say, let's refer to,
Policy AC.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a fine fix, as long as we're going to remove all the other things like age, sexual
Right.
orientation,
I
religious
mean,
beliefs, et
everything that's
cetera.
in there, if it's all part of that AC, I think we
Just
ought to
strike it
say,
all and refer to the other policy.
It's all in AC.
which, yeah, we can figure out.
Yeah, we would also have to talk to Stephen, because this is required by law, and he went through this policy himself, so if he wanted that there, I'm not sure he'll want the referral to AC only. So we would just need to check with him.
Do you just
You-
see my
you
concern
wanna-
about how we have a list of other things, but we're only removing gender, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we add this to our chat next week?
Yep, we
without
can do that.
necessarily, so we can come back with an answer
Yep.
and a recommendation, so
For
we
that,
don't
yeah, so we can. maybe move
railroad
it.
this.
Yeah, I
to
appreciate
another-
that.
Right, because this is
That might-
required by
yeah,
law.
that'll work.
All right, was there any other questions you had on
No,
that
that was
policy? Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay. So we will get back to you, Nicole, on that one.
Great, thank you.
And these will come back at the next board meeting for second reads. All right, so new business, ESSER grant update. That's you, Scott.
Sure. So before you, you should have what I have been providing the board for the last 3 years, which is kind of an overview of the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 grants. What you'll see on that sheet is the proposal to spend ESSER 3 grant funds on a Mountain View Middle School science 3-year subscription of curriculum. Wendy, if you want to, kind of speak,
Yep.
to that, we have the funding for it, and we think this is an appropriate use of the grant fund.
So this is our current programming that we have been using over at Mountain View. As the board will recall, we're also looking at some open curriculum materials as well. One of the things with the open curriculum, it's called Open SciEd, which is the curriculum that we're looking at. Though the materials are free, the kits to do a lot of the science experiments, of course, come with a pretty significant cost. And one of the things that we've been working on, and I think, Mrs. Bean has talked about this with math, is making sure that we're looking at vertical alignment. So right now, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is hopefully continuing with our SAVIS programming, looking at professional development for the summer, and taking a look at these open science materials, especially for the more inquiry-based lab-type activities, and how do we apply those in our classroom. In looking at our data, one of the things that we are realizing is we're not using enough of the online component of our current program that kind of mimics the SAS testing. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on as a group. One of the other things I'll also mention about looking forward to, again, in the future, looking at that open materials free source, is they are currently working on an elementary program. So again, in looking at vertical alignment, we want to make an informed decision. So for right now, sticking with SAVIS, knowing that in the future, we're going to be looking at perhaps making a pretty significant change. That change to that new curriculum is a very different way of teaching. It's very much student-led, students asking questions, students facilitating conversations, leading investigations, problem solving. There will be a significant amount of professional development that will go into that process when we're ready. So I just want to mention that that's where we are with SAVIS.
Scott, where do we find ourselves with respect to how much money we have available? Does
Great
this
question.
about close this thing
So
out?
on this sheet, and again, this is always good, because I think the grant requires us to talk about this every
Yep.
once in a while. So you'll note that the ESSER 2 grant is done, it's finished, and that one was spent predominantly on the Windows project at Glen Lake, at Maple Avenue and Bartlett School. So with this is a $73,500 proposed grant use for the SAVIS science curriculum from Mountain View, and that's a 3-year subscription, all right? With that, there will be about $18,000 and change that's left. And more than likely, tomorrow at our SAU staff meeting, I'm going to be talking to both Stephen and Randy about, what are some of the ways that we can kind of conclude this grant. It is done September 30th anyway, and I'd really like to, with the board's approval tonight, and having a conversation with Randy and Steve, this is one that we can probably be done this school year and close out the grant and move forward. It was, again, quite the ride for the last couple of years, getting all these different grants and projects done, so.
Hang on one second, Scott. Go
Yep.
ahead, Dan.
Is ESSER 3 funds available for things like core switches?
It's possible. It's possible, and that's why, what I want to do is I want to have a conversation with Stephen and Randy with respect to, that balance, and
Okay.
we have things that we always have to deal with, IT-wise and facilities-wise, and if we can pick something off of our capital improvements plan, whether that be IT-related or facilities, we'll just try to pick it off and close out the grant, but we're down to, again,
18 and change.
18 and change, so.
Thank you.
But this one was rather significant. Dan mentioned it in the A&F that you'll recall that ESSER 3 had a component, they called it student remediation, but anything that's related to curriculum is part of that. So the math program counted towards that. You had to spend 20% of the grant on things that really directly impacted students from a learning perspective, and this curriculum piece fits the bill there. So you'll see that, we far exceeded what we needed to in terms of that 20%. So with that, if the board is in concurrence, I would just need a motion to authorize both myself and Wendy to proceed with the grant activity for Savas Science Curriculum in the amount of $73,500.
Okay, I saw Nicole's hand up. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, just for anybody listening at home that's maybe new to this conversation, this is federal grant money. We can't use it for anything except what it's specified for.
Right.
Can't be returned to taxpayers.
Right.
We use it by September or we lose it.
You got it.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
Nicole. Go ahead,
restating all
Ellen.
that.
Yes, Scott, I don't know if you can ask this, it's a question I've had for years. All the skills needed to work, in this case, with this science curriculum, collaboration, discussions, learning, asking questions, synthesizing information, when are our students taught how to do it, as opposed to being told to do it?
Starting in kindergarten.
Yes. They are.
Absolutely.
Okay. I remember needing to teach it and I was 5th and 6th grade. Kids did not know how to do this.
And you weren't in the Goffstown School District,
No,
right?
someplace else.
But I think
And I had to
that-
teach them.
I think those are skills that kids continue to need every single year.
Reinforcement.
Throughout life.
Absolutely. So the ability to take something and then use it and apply it, that's what our teachers do.
Okay,
That's it.
okay, so these are skills we expect them to have and be able to use when they
And
get.
this particular curriculum, this is an area that we've identified as a need.
Yep.
We've identified this, that we think our middle school science scores are not reflective of what they should be, and we think we need some new programming here. We wanted to use the grant so that we could close out the project, but otherwise this would have been general fund money.
Yeah.
So I think
Okay.
this is a need, and the ability to use, and as Nicole brought up, these are use it or lose it funds. If we don't use these funds by September, we lose them. And they don't go back for tax relief for Goffstown citizens. It will go into a queue of unused money for the US DOE, and who knows what happens from there.
I don't object to these funds, I just
No, this is
had
a
that
good thing.
question and you answered it and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jared?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For this 3-year subscription, this includes 3 years of consumables as well, or would we need to have those consumables in the further budgets?
It has the first year of consumables only in there, but all of the consumables, meaning all the lab materials, Jared,
Yeah, well,
not the workbooks.
yeah, so the workbook, so we're going to have to replenish it, and that's already through our existing line items in our
We
budget.
already have it in there, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's already built.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks,
question.
Jared. Yeah. Anyone else?
One of the
Go
things
ahead,
I'll
Wendy.
also mention, Heather, is when Scott and I were looking at this, pricing out 1 year was over $45,000. So it made no sense to go for 1 year, knowing that it was a significant price savings, if you will, for that 3-year deal.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? So we'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the business administrator and assistant superintendent to utilize ESSER 3 funds on the Savas science curriculum for MVMS.
Thank you, Shane. And Ellen seconded. Any further discussion?
Does-
Seeing-
Did
oh, go
did the
ahead, Dan.
motion include the 73,500?
In the amount of $73,500.
All right, so you amended. Ellen, do you second the amendment? Okay. So any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Thank you.
Guys. All right, staffing.
So just a few notifications for the board. We have 2 student observers from St. Anselm College working with Mrs. Gogan. Again, this is something that we believe in. These are students who are interested in becoming teachers, so we want to help support that. We also have a leave of absence for Jean Barbado from Mountain View. For your approval, we have 3 retirements. These are 3 long-term employees, so we wish them well. Mrs. Price, Mrs. Barbado, and Mr. Maraska.
All right, so we'll do that one first. I'll need a motion for the retirements.
To approve the retirements with our best wishes.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Nicole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay,
The
go
next
ahead.
one is for a teacher nomination, and Mrs. Kohler is prepared to answer any questions. You may recall at our last meeting, we let the board know that we had some Title I funds available, and we wanted to evaluate what we might have for options. Well, guess what? Every once in a while, you get somebody remarkable like Dr. Chisholm to come in and work with kids. So this is unbelievable that this is what Wendy has brought forth. So this is an increase for Athena Chisholm for the remainder of the school year, and this is at Bartlett only, right?
2 days a week.
So that's the next nomination.
All right, so we'll need a motion for
Move
this
to
one.
approve the teacher nomination as presented.
Do I have a second by Ginny? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Go
Next
ahead.
nomination is for a world language teacher, and many thanks to Mrs. McCann, who got out nice and early on this to go find a French teacher, because French teachers don't exist.
Well, move to approve the nomination of Ms. McCormick as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
By Shane. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. And the last one.
And lastly, this is a nomination that we're very excited to bring to you. This is a technology nomination for a data technician for Mr. Patrick Walsh. He will be working with Betsy Murdoch in the Power School office. So welcome to Patrick, who comes with a pretty remarkable resume, very impressive individual, and we can't wait for him to join us.
Move to approve Mr. Walsh as presented.
Do I have a second? By Caroline. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. And that's it for
That's it.
staffing.
No non-public.
No non-public. Any other business that may legally come before us? Seeing none.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Retta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.